Hello, it's Karen Burniston here with my monthly designer challenge video.
The theme this month is tree, so I wanted to go back to our original tree pop-up along with the nature edges. But then I'm also going to mix in a brand new die. This is our new pattern plate flowers. Now, if you are unfamiliar with this old favorite, it has 7 dies included in the set, and what I've done is use the little die that cuts the 6 flowers along with the trunk and the leaves and cut those out of those appropriate colors. So I cut the brown tree trunk and then the leaf set. It's a single die, but once you glue the tree over the top of it, it makes it look like there are individual leaves. Now, I think the easiest way to get that lined up is just to look to the outer lower branches and make sure that they are right in the middle of their respective leaves, and then that will just kind of figure out all the rest of the branches for you. My favorite glue is LINECO Neutral pH Adhesive. It's in our fine tip bottle. We do sell both of those items on our website, as well as these QuickStik pickup tools that make it very easy to place the flowers. Okay, now it's time to make the pop-up card, and I've chosen a small inner card, 5 inches by 4 inches, scored at 2 inches. And before I cut the pop-up into this piece, I'm going to use the grass edger from the Nature Edges die set along the top edge to have the top be the positive space grass, and then along the bottom edge, it's going to create the negative space grass. This is the little pop-up die that comes included with the tree, and it has the little alignment nubs. You line those up right over the fold, and then you cut it into the piece, and that will create a straight box pop-up to animate the tree. But what I'm trying to do for today's card is something a little different. I've decided I want angled pop-ups. So to use this die to make an angled pop-up, I first must back fold the card. And then I don't have to worry about the alignment nubs now. I just need to make sure that the end of the die goes over the fold a little bit, and I can place that at whatever angle I like. I have temporary removable tape to hold that in place, and then before I roll that through my die cutting machine, I want to do a little check. I'm taking one of my trees, I'm laying it face down and putting the trunk right up against the edge of that pop-up die and looking out here to the right to see if my leaves are going to stay in the card. The card is going to be the same width as that inner card. I had to slide my tree further in, which means I need to slide the pop-up die further in as well. So just lining it up with the end of that tree, maybe I'm going to make it a little bit larger angle, completely up to you, but then making sure that it stays within the card. Now I have a good location for that pop-up. To make an angled platform, I need to cut through the card when the card is closed so that I'm actually cutting through both layers. So I'll just roll that right through my machine and right back again since I'm going through 2 layers. Any die cutting machine that can accommodate a wafer thin die will work. I'm using a Spellbinders Platinum 6. Okay, so you can see that pop up, and I just need to check if it got through the fold, and I can see just on this outer edge it didn't quite go all the way to the fold, so I'll just snip that, because I want to be able to fold that whole platform down on the little score line at the bottom to train it. And then what happens is I just pop that to come inside the card. And then that will be the platform that holds my tree. Now, as I'm looking at this, I'm realizing, oh wait, I wanted to use the light green side forward, so I just need to reverse my folds so that it's the light green side that's forward, but either would have worked. So I purposely made that first platform pretty large, meaning that it's coming pretty far forward into the card, and that way I can place the other one further back, and that way it's more likely that they're not going to crash into each other. I wouldn't want to do the exact same angled platform on the other side, or else the likelihood is that all the leaves would tangle together. Okay, so just making sure that my leaves are staying in the card. I'm on the other side of the card now, just making sure that I have an angled location where the side of the tree is within the limits of the card. And you can see I'm much closer to the fold this time, so that this tree is going to be further back from the first one and hopefully not crash into it. For die cutting, I keep my card folded up so that I'm actually cutting through both layers. Because I am cutting through 2 layers, I like to roll it through and then right back through again so that it gets a double pass. And I do recommend that you use some removable tape to hold those dies in place while you're doing this so that it doesn't slide. But then I can take the die off. I've got that little small platform. I want to fold it over to train the fold. Then I just fold the card in the usual manner and popping those platforms to come into the card as it folds closed. Okay, so that is just a way that you can use that pop-up die that's included in the tree to make angled platforms instead. And remember, this wouldn't have to hold trees, so maybe you want to animate a few little animals or some other things on platforms like this. If you've got that tree die, you've got that really perfect generic platform. Since I'm working on a grid, I can actually make sure that the left side of my card is right on that grid line, and that way I can make sure that my tree stays in as well as I attach it to that left platform. So I have my tree face down, and then I want the glue on the front face of that pop-up platform, and then I'm just going to carefully close the card so that the glue will attach to the back of the tree and pick it up in the right position. So it's always a good idea to start with the platform that's the furthest back when you're filling it. Okay, so now I can put my tree on the other platform. Once again, if I just use my grid line, I can make sure that I'm placing it so that my tree stays in the limits of the card. And then my adhesive needs to go on the front face of that platform. Okay, so once again, just carefully folding it down, and I can see that I moved my tree. So let me just wiggle that back into position again so that that platform will just go right up the back of the tree and that the leaves stay in the limits of the card. Okay, so it's really not going to work perfectly until I get it into a backing card because it's a little fiddly right now. But essentially, I'm just looking to make sure that the trees aren't tangling or crashing into each other, and they're not. Okay, for a backing card, I've chosen to make a 5x5 square card. So that's a 5x10 inch piece of cardstock scored at 5 inches. And I basically want to line up the folds and glue this into the card. And I'm only going to work on the back section first, just making sure that I glue down all of the little blades of grass so that my back tree can't tangle up in them. So I wouldn't want those loose. I definitely want those glued down tight. Now, since there was so much light green behind the trees, I kind of wanted to add some contrast. So I made a rolling hill using the nature edges. Now on the right side, it can slide under the pop-up, but on the left side, that pop-up's too small for it to go under. So I have to notch out a little notch to go down over the pop-up so that I can glue that to the card. And that's really easy enough to do. It doesn't have to be perfect because the tree is going to disguise the notch anyway. Okay, so I'm adding a piece of a contrasting green to the ground so that the edge is up underneath the grass, but then also I can still slide things underneath the bottom edge as well. So I'm just kind of working my way down now. And I can go ahead and glue down the pop-up then, again, making sure that I'm being pretty liberal with my glue, especially in all those blades of grass so that they can't create any kind of catch point with the trees. Okay, so now the pop-up is installed inside the card and you can see how well it's working. And I'm just going to use those edges from the nature edges to create a couple more grassy areas that can complete out this card. So one skinny one that can go there kind of amongst the trees, then a straight piece along the bottom, and then finally fill in with that last little bit of rolling hills. One thing that was standing out to me was how much blue I was seeing behind the rightmost tree. So I just cut a little scrap of green to go in there and fill that in. Okay, so all of my floor, my grassy meadow, is completed. And then for the sky, I'm turning to the clouds edge from the nature edges. And what I like to do is just use it twice to make little wedges and pieces like this. And then those just glue along that back blue area to kind of fill it in as a cloudy sky. We have some brand new pattern plates, and this is the flowers version that I'm going to use on the front of this card. It is the most intricate of our pattern plates, and as such, it's going to cut the easiest if you use a precision base plate or a metal shim. Now, there are different metal shims for different machines, so you definitely want to check with your manufacturer of whatever machine you're using to figure out what is the metal shim or base plate that works with your machine. When you use one of those things, you're going to be able to cut the flowers in one pass. But you can skip the metal shim or the precision base plate if you're willing to rotate and turn and do a few passes and possibly some paper shims, then you can cut it without it. So I will show that in the assembly video for the pattern plates that you do not have to have a metal shim. And then for emptying out the die of all the paper confetti, I recommend a Spellbinders tool-in-one. The pattern plates are A2 sized, but I want to make it into a square. So what I've done is just cut the bottom section off of the pattern plate, and then I'm going to move it upwards and just line up the patterns so that it will essentially become, close to a square. I don't know that it's a perfect square, but it's close enough to work on a square card. And really, it's pretty enough that you don't need much to go with it. I decided on just adding another tree and some of the flowers from the tree just sprinkled onto the pattern plate. And then inside, I decided on a greeting of Happy Spring. That's our Happy Spring word die. And then on the dot of the eye, I decided just to put another one of those flowers. Now the tree does come with two different swings that you can put on the tree, and I decided to go for the tire swing and just tied it right onto the tree using some twine. My finished card measures 5 by 5 square, and that's a nice size square card because you can mail it in a rectangular A7 envelope and it doesn't cost any extra postage. So you can see how those brand new pattern plates are really going to work with your existing dies, like that tree and those nature edges, to bring a new, fresh look to them. So as you build your collection of our die sets, you can see how they always continuously work together. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBurniston.com, where you can find out information about purchasing these dies, as well as links to all my other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.